I've looked into so many things, trying to find some proper philosophy to understanding, just trying to get through this crap. I find obstacles, in a sense, well, how to put this? I feel like the entire structure of society. Like, I just sat and listened to the, like an hour and a half long thing talking about like poor Eternus or whatever, the the man child or whatever, stuff about Carl Jung. I read Carl Jung, you know, the audiobooks about that. Same with, Eckhart Tolle. Yeah, I mean, I've been in all types of shit. It'll take a long time to go through all the like books that I've read or listened to in audiobooks numerous times. Dug into psychology, religion, spirituality. Even listening to the sort of philosophy of like Carl Jung and these people, I really can't help but feel like, or the same thing with the ideas presented in a sense, I feel like what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, in many ways seems like an outdated model or whatever. Which is to say that, like, at the time when these concepts were formed, which is not to say that there's not some validity to them in the modern day, but at the time when concepts were formed, like the idea of the archetypes of Carl Jung, or the same time, you could refer to, even some of the types of like symbolism of, some of the messages even in the Bible and stuff like that. Whatever little positive things you felt we could glean back in the day, like. And I feel like in the modern day, there's far less validity to these points in the modern day. In a lot of ways, yeah. Because we're not in the same fucking world. It's like, I don't know, man. It's almost like the same sort of disconnect over numerous decades, or like the way that boomers don't understand Gen Z or whatever, and so on and so forth. it's not that there's not some solidity to some of the concepts being expressed here, like for a good amount. And there's even, I suppose, some things to be said for the ideas of Stoicism and so on and so forth. The issue I have with all these things is that it seems to me that they all kind of, in a sense, feed into like Pavlovian conditioning, which keeps society running the way that it has been, in a sense, but things have been getting worse over time. You've got so many people insisting that things are better than they've ever been now. But it's not true. Well, I guess that depends on your perspective. Oh yeah, I mean, somebody's sitting up in the high tower of their castle on top of the hill, looks down, they can't see the forest through the trees or whatever, or they can't see the trees through the forest, and the person down in the muck below, you know, living under a tarp down there or whatever, can't see the forest through the trees because or whatever, different perspectives, right? Which is to say, pretty much what it sounds like. Somebody's situation in life is that there's, sitting up sipping tea from the balcony of their castle looking down below. And, oh, everything is fantastic here. World looks great from where I'm standing. you know. That's a big part of it, right? All these peasants down below are just lazy. Well, there's a lot of fucking promises made to us. Promises. Well, let's take a biblical promise there. Have no fear for what you shall eat or what you shall drink, or what you shall put on. Is not the body more than meat, blah blah blah, more than raiment. Behold the fowls of the air, for they sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather into barns, but your heavenly Father provideth for them. How much greater shall he provide for you, O ye of little faith? And it, so what? That's So who tells us this shit? The rich people sitting in their ivory towers while they step over a bunch of poor homeless people, and they're gonna sit back and say, "Look how blessed I am, and how these people must be wicked. For look how they live in poverty." Right? Mm-hmm. Oh man. I don't know, man. Like, I feel like, okay, here's what bothers me here. All right, what bothers me about all of this, well, more like the basic structures of our society, right? Whether you look at religion or psychology, operant conditioning, the whole basic structure of human civilization is set up in such a way to create a world of a handful of haves and a whole bunch of have nots, to create a world of unfairness and injustice and massive, I hate to even use words like inequality and so on and so. I don't know. I don't want to start. I don't see hard like any philosophy in this world that really touches. I mean, I don't know. Anarchism, somewhat. Maybe, I don't know. It just see to notice this shit though. If you ask Carl Jung or you ask a minister or anybody else to notice these things, you would be labeled as an immature and childish for noticing or for pointing out that there's truth, that there is a great deal of unfairness and injustice in the world, and that it's true that things are freaking screwed up here. The whole society, whether you look at social operant conditioning, religion, from any way you fucking look at it, political structure, all of it. Well, precious few trains of thought that lead us anywhere but to a continuation of, degradation and devaluation of the majority of human beings on Earth. Lead us either, I mean, the political structures that people have philosophized about for the most part, the dominant political structures, from what I can tell, straight up tyrannical, straight up tyrannical and destructive to, if you look at this as a physical realm or something, that this is all a real deal, and then what's going on in this world, if these governments and societies continue on the way they are, then our species is probably like doomed to either the technology and so on continues on, and the political structures and these psycho fucking Bond villains are allowed to run the shit, then we're doomed, man. Excuse me if you think it's immature or negative or something to point out reality in such a way. I mean, seriously, why are we living in a world where our whole fucking philosophy, whether you look at from religious, for the most part, now I get it that there's like the communists and stuff like that are like, yeah, go for everyone, but they went batshit, all that crap. That's just some. That, for the most part, to me, I would imagine political structure views them as sort of pawns on a chessboard, you know? Mm-hmm. Perhaps like in a V for Vendetta sort of a fashion, but like what, more along the lines of the sort of stuff that occurred, before all that, or I don't know. I didn't. No, I don't. Never mind. Somewhat of a bad analogy, I guess. Yeah. Reminded of a couple of quotes. One is a real Rothschild quote from back in the day. It says, "Give me control of a nation's currency, and I care not who makes its laws." Another is this is from character playing a rich scammer horn guy or whatever from the movie Gangs of New York. He says, "You can always pay one half of the poor to take care of the rest." you know. Yeah. I mean, this whole left-right things. I mean, it seems like there's not enough people conscious of the whole left-right paradigm sort of deal. People are just getting like back and forth. Same tricks continue to work. Oh, whatever. Blah. I don't know, man. That's the thing. I mean, even I would consider, in many ways, Carl Jung. Of course, I don't know. I haven't poured through all this psychiatrist and psychologist, literature in the world or whatever. But in many ways, I would say he has a greater degree of understanding of, psychology than just about almost anyone that I. Except the whole thing, like everything else in society, focused on the mindset of people, is less focused on trying to help people in general to expand and to grow as a species, to improve the lives of future generations, and has been more just continued greater and greater implementation of systems of control to create a more obedient, subservient population, and to demonize concepts of, to either weaponize concepts of freedom against people or to demonize concepts of freedom against people, creating a dichotomy whereby you have your left-right paradigm or your I don't know, just your professional wrestling thing. Doesn't have to be left-right paradigm. Just think of it this way: like, give people false options, so that depending on whichever way the wind's blowing, you play to the bigger crowd or whatever, or you play to this crowd for a little while and you switch back to the other crowd, back and forth, keeping the masses in conflict with one another, arguing over which political puppet should rule over them for the next eternity, because it just keeps getting, they just keep passing the ball back and forth, you know. Ugh. Ugh. I don't know, man. It's just like some type of theater show that feel like I'm trapped in this world. It doesn't seem real in the sense of physical realm or anything. In a sense, I feel like even the idea of trying to. I don't know. It's not the first time I've listened to Carl Jung ebooks and stuff like that, and yeah. I get the concept of well, it seems to me that our societal structure, basically everything from social operant conditioning over put through in the school system, and from a young age to the church and the schools and everything else. Societal indoctrination, the social operant conditioning, things even as basic as, for instance, how we have, light. We react automatically when we see a red light. Even if we're out on a road alone by ourselves, how many of you think you would stop because the light it's red? You have to stop. It's red. If you're out on a road in a four-way intersection, there's no traffic coming as far as the eye can see anywhere. Would you stop because there was a sign there that said stop? Right? You see what I'm saying? We're conditioned to feel afraid to light a cigarette as we stand in a big open parking lot, or as we walk through an empty park. Because there's a sign. There's a sign says don't do that, And there's a whole lot of stuff like that. It's just systems of coercion, control, threats to beat us down and beat us into submission, basically. The whole structure of our society, no matter which way you look, the only solution offered when we seek out, when we feel sort of out of place in society or whatever, like something is wrong with this place, we're told that something is wrong with us. And that the key to getting along in society is to submit, conform, obey, surrender, Yeah. Yes, it very much does seem like a betrayal of freedom, the concept of freedom and free thought, because the whole structure of our civilization is built upon concepts clearly designed to annihilate fucking freedom and to create a society of slaves and basically people that will accept shittier conditions and shittier pay and shittier standards of living, that will sell out for less and less. You will own nothing and be happy. Eat the bugs now, Water is a privilege. I agree with, what I heard from Carl Jung. Of course, well, in numerous different types of ways. I can see very clearly. I can see how the way it was portrayed, the way the person was reading it or portraying it in their video, ranting about the Carl Jung's philosophy, sounded like, demonizing and calling concepts of freedom and so on and so forth, childish and immature and all this kind of shit. Who do you think paid? Who do you think funded the research for all these psychiatrists and psychologists wanting to try and understand the minds of the people that they wanted to control? Like who? Yeah. Developed all these concepts of fucking, psychiatry, psychology, religion, social operant conditioning, Pavlovian conditioning, so on and so forth. It's all fucking systems of coercion and control. Willie Lynch on steroids for the whole world, man. Mm. Well, it is what it is, huh? What it is, man, what it is.